Welcome back to Cruising Calypso. This week we're going to take a look at the difference between LED and halogen lights. Coming up. So, Calypso has about 14 of these halogen lights in the ceiling to light the salon. Now, you say, why does that matter? And they do a great job of lighting the boat. But each of these halogen lights burns about 3 amps per hour. So if you take those 3 amps per hour and multiply that by the 14 bulbs that there are, that adds up to 42 amp hours per hour. Now, to put that in perspective, our battery bank that we use for the house batteries is made up of 2 90 amp batteries. So we have 180 amp hours of battery power without replenishing it. Now, of course, we do have a generator. We do run the generator and we can recharge it. But absent running the generator all the time, we have 180 amp hours of battery time to run. So if all of these lights together for an hour burn 42 amps, in 2 hours with the salon lights on, we'll go through 50% of the available amp power in the batteries, which is effectively all of it, because you don't want to draw the batteries down more than 50%. So think about that. In 2 hours with just these lights on, nothing else, then we include the refrigerator, which also takes 12 volt power when we're on the hook, or flushing the heads or running the water pump, you'll go through half of the power and use up basically all of your reserve house power. This is what happened to us last summer when we went to Edgartown. We were running the house lights, we were running the refrigerator, and sure, I ran the generator, but I didn't run it enough, and I drew the batteries down too far. So what do? So let's contrast that. This is an LED replacement bulb. This fits in the same hole that this does. It's 12 volts, but instead of being 3 amp hours, this is 0.65. It's brighter, 0.65 versus 3. So when you do the math, those 14 bulbs are about 9, maybe 10 amps per hour for all of them running. 10 amps, 40 amps. So I can run in a typical evening when we're in the boat and we're running the lights. In 2 hours, I've used 20 amps of power versus 80 amps of power. So I have recently ordered 14 of these bulbs. They come in sets of 4 like this. I bought them on Amazon. Set of 4 is $27. And they're basically direct replacements. I have to put connectors on this end that are much like these. And then they plug in, and then these little wire springs engage with the ceiling and pull the light in. It's also a slightly more updated style than the original ones that were here. And by the way, this one's also burnt out too. So I have 2 that are burnt out and they don't work anyway. And it's a sealed unit, so there's no way to replace the bulb. So we are going to, as soon as these bulbs come in, we're going to replace all 14 in the salon. And by the way, that doesn't even count for the ones that are in the 2 staterooms, the ones that are in the heads, but those aren't on for an extended period of time. So I will start to replace those also slowly. But the biggest draw is the salon on lights. I mean, if we were to add the 2 staterooms, of which there's 2 in the guest cabin and there's 4 in the master, so there's another 6 of those. So there's another 18 amps you're burning. Plus there are in the cockpit lights, which we don't really use too much, but they're everywhere. So this boat is full of these lights. I think in total there's 30, if you include the closets, the head, the showers. So I will eventually replace all of them. I'm starting with the first 14, and then I will replace them all. But hopefully, with that done, we should be able to stay on the hook, off of shore power, and with the generator available to charge, we should be able to do fine. So the process for pulling and changing out these lights is, you can see there are these springs on these lights, and these are the old halogen lights. So pretty much I just sort of slip a screwdriver in under it once I get my fingers into it, I pull down, and as long as I watch out for these springs, which do snap, then the bulb light comes out. It uses these quick connectors right here. The new ones, they come just with bare wires. So what you need is these type of connectors here. What are these actually called? Ticonn connectors. So you need the Ticonn connectors and the Ticonn crimping tool. And you just crimp on a male and female to the respective sides. And then it plugs back in. So let's do that. So the technique that I have found that works is I put the connector in the jaws. As you can see, the jaws are color coded and the connectors are color coded. Yellow, blue, and red. Yellow, blue, and red. Blue being the middle one. So I put the connector in the jaws, and the jaws are ratchet. So I'm not putting any pressure here to hold it closed. Now that that's in, I can insert the wire and squeeze the connector, and the jaws, as I say, are ratchet, and they won't reopen until you complete the stroke. All right, let's see how that came out. Yep, that's on. And that is all the way to it. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. Now I'll just put the female side on and plug it back in. These bulbs go in very similarly, but the springs are a little softer and they're a little bit smaller, so we just fit them in. And the finished product looks like that. The other thing to remember about these bulbs is, unlike traditional incandescent bulbs, LEDs are very sensitive to polarity. So you have to put positive and negative on the correct side or they will not light. And that's easy just to do because you can see here, there is a red wire and a black and red wire. So black goes to black. In this case, red goes to blue on my boat. So just make sure and test it before you close it back up. So here is the finished result. I have installed 14 LED lights, 12 here in the salon and 2 down in one of the staterooms. Once you sort of get the hang of it, it wasn't too bad. Will help. So take a look at your lighting. I know most people replace their halogens with LEDs, and I did that on the first Calypso, but it never really occurred to me just how much power these 14 lights were burning. I mean, I knew they burned a fair amount of power, but when you add it all up, I realized, as I said, in 2 hours, you've used up the battery bank. So take a look at your power. Some of the boats, like Calypso, have a lot of these halogen lights, and these, you can't just buy bulbs. It is a complete unit. Some lights, you can buy bulbs, and by all means, that's the way to do that. But if you can't, you can buy these sealed units. It's relatively affordable. They come in a couple of different styles. They come in both warm white and white white. These ones happen to be white white, but the ones I've ordered are warm white, so they'll look a little bit more like the halogen or an incandescent. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Do the math. For every halogen bulb, it's just under 3 amps. Add it up, and depending on how much battery power you have, that's how long you're going to be able to run those batteries, plus everything else. So there's another tip for you from Cruising Calypso. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, if you like this content, make sure you hit the bell to know when we release new content so you don't miss anything. We'd love it if you would subscribe and hit the thumbs up. It helps the channel. So until then, we will see you on the next video. Bye.